There is a moment when something changes and nothing reacts. No headlines, no urgency, no warning. Life continues exactly as it was. People wake up, scroll, work, sleep. And yet, something is different. Not because a dramatic event occurred, but because a signal passed through reality and almost no one registered it. This is how the most important disruptions begin, not with noise, but with silence. History teaches us to expect chaos before change. We imagine alarms, collapses, obvious threats, but that's rarely how it happens. More often, change arrives quietly, embedded inside routine, a subtle anomaly, a pattern that doesn't fully align, a small inconsistency that doesn't feel urgent enough to stop everything else. And because it doesn't interrupt daily life, it's ignored. Modern systems are designed to detect extremes. They're excellent at identifying explosions, crashes, sudden spikes, but they struggle with gradual deviation. Anything that doesn't scream for attention blends into the background. This creates a dangerous illusion. If nothing feels wrong, then nothing must be wrong. But reality doesn't operate on feelings. Signals don't need permission to exist. They don't wait to be noticed. They simply pass through. And whether they're acknowledged or not has nothing to do with their importance. In many cases, the most meaningful signals are the least dramatic. They don't arrive with explanations. They don't come with clear labels. They just sit there, uncomfortable, ambiguous, unresolved. And ambiguity makes people uneasy, so the mind does what it does best. It simplifies, it normalizes. It moves on. A strange object in the sky becomes probably nothing. An unexpected data point becomes measurement, error. An unfamiliar pattern becomes not worth worrying about. Not because these explanations are true, but because they are familiar. Familiarity is calming, and calm feels like safety. The world has always been full of signals that didn't fit existing models. The difference now is speed. Information moves faster than reflection. Interpretation comes before observation finishes. So signals are processed quickly, filtered, categorized, and dismissed before their implications are understood. This isn't negligence. It's design. Modern life rewards continuity. Anything that threatens stability is subconsciously treated as noise, because stopping to question reality is costly. It slows production. It creates uncertainty. It forces uncomfortable conversations. So the system does what it's optimized to do. It keeps moving. And when something doesn't force a pause, it gets absorbed. Disruption without disruption, change without reaction. That's the nature of modern signals. They don't announce themselves. They wait. Once the signal passes unnoticed, a familiar process begins. Not panic, not investigation. Normalization. The human mind is exceptionally good at adapting. Too good. When something doesn't immediately threaten survival, resources shift. Focus moves elsewhere. This happens automatically. The brain is wired to reduce uncertainty quickly. Uncertainty creates friction. Friction consumes energy. So the mind looks for efficiency. It asks a simple question: can this be safely ignored? If the answer isn't clearly no, attention withdraws. This is how filtering becomes habit. Over time, perception stops scanning for anomalies. It waits for interruption. Anything that doesn't interrupt is treated as background. This creates a subtle but powerful shift. Observation is replaced by reaction. People stop looking and start responding. Responding to notifications. Responding to narratives. Responding to whatever demands urgency. But signals that matter most rarely behave that way. They don't compete. They don't escalate. They don't repeat themselves on schedule. So they lose. Not because they are weak, but because they are quiet. Modern attention is trained, not chosen. Every alert reinforces the same lesson. React fast, move on. Stillness feels unproductive. Pauses feel uncomfortable. And anything that requires sustained attention feels suspiciously inefficient. This is why slow changes feel invisible. A gradual shift doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like normal variation. A small deviation doesn't trigger alarm. It blends in. The mind assumes someone else is monitoring it, that if it mattered, it would be louder. This assumption spreads. Each individual trusts the system. The system trusts collective awareness. And collective awareness assumes the system would react. Nothing reacts. So nothing is questioned. This is how blind spots form. Not through ignorance, but through shared confidence. The absence of concern becomes evidence of safety. If no one's worried, why should I be? At this point, attention is no longer neutral. It's guided. Guided away from ambiguity. Guided toward familiarity. Guided toward what feels resolved. The signal is still there, but now it exists outside the frame of relevance. It hasn't disappeared. It's been filtered. At this point, the signal hasn't vanished. It never does. What changes is its status. It moves from something that could be questioned to something that feels irrelevant. And relevance is where the real war is fought, because reality doesn't need to be hidden to be controlled. It only needs to be. When attention shifts away from ambiguity, certainty takes its place. Not real certainty. Functional certainty. Enough clarity to keep things moving. Enough explanation to avoid stopping. Enough comfort to prevent deeper inspection. This is how systems protect themselves, not by silencing dissent, but by starving it of attention. The most dangerous signals aren't denied. They're acknowledged briefly, then quietly buried under familiarity. A label replaces curiosity. A narrative replaces observation. A conclusion appears before understanding finishes, and once something feels concluded, the mind closes the file. That's the moment the war is effectively won. Not by force, by framing, because once perception is shaped, reality doesn't need to be altered anymore. People will defend the frame themselves. They'll explain away inconsistencies. They'll dismiss anomalies. As distractions, they'll protect the structure that keeps life predictable, not because they're manipulated, but because uncertainty feels worse. Admitting that something important was missed creates discomfort. It suggests vulnerability. It implies that control was never complete, so the mind resists. It prefers coherence over accuracy, stability over truth, closure over clarity. This is why major shifts rarely feel obvious while they're happening. They only become clear in retrospect, once consequences force a pause, once reality becomes loud enough that it can no longer be filtered. By then, the window for early understanding has passed, and people ask the same question every time. How did we not see this coming? The answer is always the same. They did see it. They just didn't recognize it as important, because importance is not inherent. It's assigned, and whatever assigns it controls perception. This isn't about fear. It's about awareness, about realizing that seeing something is not the same as noticing it. That information alone is not enough. Attention is the real currency, and where attention is directed determines what feels real. The moment you understand that, you stop assuming reality is complete. You start questioning the frame, and that's where this war actually begins. Before you leave, take a second to check if you're resubscribed. Most people think they are. They usually aren't.